All right, sorry about that, guys. Maybe you'll join me over on this stream. If not, you can watch this video later. As I said, my internet is having some issues. It is raining today and everybody's on the internet. So I was talking about there being no new ideas and writers not wanting to be unduly influenced by other creators, except everything is a remix and you have to learn how to steal like an artist, not in a bad way. Steal has kind of negative connotations, but I will post both of those links to the Austin book and the Everything is a Remix video series for you to watch, because I really wanted with influence. A lot of writers come to me and they say, hey, I saw in Publishers Marketplace, there was a book sold that sounds just like my book and now my life is over and my idea is no longer good. But it's important to note that you are going to execute the idea a certain way. And the person who sold a book that sounds like your book has executed that idea their way. And this is why you can't copyright a title, because a lot of ideas can even have the same title. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be find out that somebody is also writing a Selkie book in middle grade in sort of the year that you were hoping to launch your Selkie book, because one publisher got that Selkie book, but now there may be another publisher looking for another Selkie book and you may slot into that spot. So this idea that there can only be one Selkie book or there can only be one idea, this, that, or the other, I think is very limiting, and a lot of writers can spend a lot of time unduly freaking out about something that at the end of the day doesn't matter. And so this is why I very much do not appreciate this idea that writers isolate themselves from reading, because and that's not to say I can't validate that opinion. If you have that opinion, that's not to say that I don't understand part of where this concern comes from, but there is so much good to be said about learning from your peers. Because if you want to be a writer, if you want to have a writing career, if you want to get out there and get published, then the people on the shelves are your peers. Neil Gaiman is your peer. And so if you're worried about reading the Graveyard book, because you don't want it to sort of seep into you, you don't want to rip it off, you are missing out on so many wonderful things that come from reading the Graveyard book. I don't know why that came to mind today, but you are missing out on seeing a master practice his craft. And that is going to influence you in a positive way, much more, I believe, than anything you pick up that may influence you or your work in a negative way. And so this I don't want it to creep in. I don't want it to spoil my work. If there's one thing that I can dissuade you from, especially during this time when you have maybe a lot of reading time on your hands, is this idea that, you know, I'm a writer who doesn't read. I think it's baloney. I think it's unnecessary, and I think it could do a lot of harm rather than good for you as a writer in the meantime. So when you're thinking about your couple of weeks and they're weird and homebound all of a sudden, why not go through that to read pile? Because my to read pile goes maybe 20 books high, and there are 3 of them or like 2.5 of them. So I would say I have about 25 books right now in my to read pile. Yeah, I have this like built-in in the room where I can keep like multiple levels of books. So it could like work as a bookshelf, but if I stack them deep instead of just up and down and facing out, then I can cram more books in there. So that's where my to read pile lives. Crack open a book. And if you're tired of your category, this sometimes happens. You know, you've been writing a chapter book for a long time. The last thing you kind of want to do is get wrapped up in another chapter book. If that's the case, read in another category. But I think that keeping yourself sharp, keeping your instrument sharp, tuning your instrument to sort of the standards and expectations of published work, that can only happen when you're reading published work. We tend to get into an echo chamber. I know it's true for me as an editor. I read a lot of unpublished work. And so I read fiction from shelves and also nonfiction personally, to sort of keep my brain sharp, keep my instrument agile, and keep myself tuned to what is actually out there, what is being published, what the peers in the marketplace are doing. And so If you're tired of chapter books, go ahead and read a beautiful adult literary novel, for example. Or if you want more inspiration for your particular category, you're writing a fantasy middle grade, go read a fantasy middle grade that has recently come out and is maybe getting a lot of buzz. If you want to take your mind off of something, go read. What I love to read is nonfiction, and I like the Malcolm Gladwell. Actually, I had a dream about Malcolm Gladwell last night. I go to nonfiction. It looks like my stream might be buffering again. So if you lose me, I'm sorry. But read. All the excuses that you have in your head for not reading, they are excuses. They are there to sort of maybe keep you from truly stepping into your true knowledge and craft as a writer. I think that one part of that recipe absolutely needs to be watching what your peers are doing, watching the people that are truly kicking butt out there, watching what they're doing, the award winners, the people who have the runaway blockbuster hits, what they're doing, so that it will eventually filter down to you. One of the things that makes my career as an editor possible is that writers are notoriously bad at seeing their work objectively. We can recognize an issue in somebody else's writing, but it takes a little bit longer for us to recognize that same issue in our own writing. Or we can recognize the issue, but we don't want to admit it's an issue. There are all these kind of mind games that writers play with themselves, and that's just part of human nature. That's just part of being a human being. And so I would say there are all these ways in which we can sort of psych ourselves out, and also recognize the good, not just the bad, in the work of others. Like in critique groups, we're always very quick to point out what's not working in somebody else's work. But in order for all of it, the good, the bad, all the craft knowledge, to eventually filter down to you in a way that you could use it for your own writing, you have to also see the good that people are doing. And there's no better way to do that than to read books that are published, acclaimed, that have done really well in the market. Just take a look at the shelves, and I bet you all have a pile that's as big as mine, maybe smaller, that we've been waiting to read. This is a perfect time to do that and to broaden your horizons in terms of what your peers are doing. And I use that word very, very specifically. It's something that I'm also very passionate about. They're not your competition. They're your peers. Them getting a book that's published, getting a, it's just they got their slot. And the way that you get your slot is you keep learning, you keep pushing yourself, you keep seeing what other people are doing, and you sort of keep an eye on the market as well as your own writing. So today's tip, tackle a to-read pile. I know that I need to do mine. I could honestly stay in quarantine we're not in a shelter-in-place area yet, but I could honestly probably quarantine myself for a year and not run out of reading material. So take a look at what's in the pile, go pick something else. Use it to decompress tonight after your family's in bed. You know, everybody's close quarters right now. But yeah, see what other people are doing, because as writers, sometimes we really get into an echo chamber where we're, marinating in our own writing or the writing of our critique group. And sometimes it helps to sort of, after a long winter, open the windows, let some fresh air in. So that's my writing, creativity, and productivity tip for today. This is day 4 of a 14-day plan series. I will see you here at noon every day through March 29th. Stay healthy, stay sane, and this has been Mary Cole. Bye.